Does intersectionality dilute political focus? Let's talk about it. Intersectionality, which is a term first coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, is a framework that looks at multiple systems of oppression, like race, gender, class, sexuality, ability, etc., and how these forms of oppression intersect. So why do some people think that looking at these intersections dilutes political focus? Traditional Marxists, for example, focus on class as the main system of oppression, and they believe that adding more layers of oppression to our analysis draws our attention away from the main oppressive system, which is capitalism, and serves to distract the working class from forming a global proletariat. Activists against differing forms of oppression have different priorities and disagree on what should be addressed first or most urgently. Should we address racism first? Should we address sexism first? Or should we address economic inequality first and will everything else just fall into place naturally after that? Intersectionality can make reform or revolution a bit more complicated because now multiple interlocking systems are being looked at the same time. But many would say that intersectionality doesn't have to dilute political focus. Using an intersectional lens can deepen our understanding rather than weaken it because it gives us a holistic view of the system and allows us to see how each subsystem is interconnected. To use the language of systems theory, it allows us to see each system of oppression as an open system rather than a closed one. According to systems theory, a closed system is a system that operates in isolation, with boundaries that prevent interaction with other systems, whereas open systems interact with their environment continuously. They exchange energy, information, and influence, and changes in one part of the system can ripple throughout the entire system. Intersectionality shows us that different systems of oppression are mutually constitutive, meaning that they constantly shape and define each other. Oppression is networked, dynamic, and context-dependent. However, even though it is possible to view oppression through an intersectional lens, many might argue that this has practical and political difficulties. Firstly, political movements need a clear struggle or a clearly defined target in order to allow for concentrated collective action. Intersectionality can make political action feel fragmented with poorly defined goals. This almost makes me think of that meme where there's a poster at a protest, I believe, that says, like, stop everything or something with that energy. Secondly, some might argue that intersectionality lends itself to whataboutism and runs the risk of comparing suffering, thereby diluting focus. For example, it could open the door to questioning somebody's focus on a specific political issue. So for example, disagreeing with activism against gender-based violence because violence also affects Black or disabled or poor men, for example. Then on a very practical level, an intersectional lens in policymaking can be extremely difficult because sometimes only certain issues can be prioritized by policymakers due to a lack of resources. And an intersectional lens might not have a realistic view on how to address competing political issues. So overall, intersectionality offers a very necessary lens for understanding complex oppression and how these systems of oppression interact with one another. But at the same time, the very complexity of oppression presents real challenges, and many believe that an intersectional lens isn't really fully equipped to handle these challenges. So how can this tension between inclusivity and a clear focus be navigated? How can we continuously balance clarity, urgency, and the complexity of different forms of oppression?